Welcome to Accommodate This. My name is David, and I'm a late diagnosed autistic adult. I make content about issues affecting the neurodivergent community, so if that's something you're interested in, please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content. There are a lot of horror stories out there about people's experiences trying to obtain an autism evaluation. And some people have had to wait years or spend thousands of dollars just to get theirs. And while it can be difficult to find a reliable provider to perform the evaluation, and it can be expensive, there are many options for diagnosis today, making it easier to obtain an evaluation than ever before. Still, there are some important points to consider before spending your precious time or money on the effort. So today, I'm going to share with you 10 important points to consider before seeking an autism diagnosis. And now that you know why we're here, let's get into the topic for this video. Diagnosis basics. Number 1, what is an appropriate age to get evaluated for autism? Some autism evaluations are designed for specific age groups, but there's no minimum or maximum age overall for seeking a diagnosis. Some tests can identify autism of embryos, though those are quite expensive and not well backed yet. And the recommended age in the United States is to get a diagnosis between ages 18 and 24 months old. That's a period when the brain development is significantly ramping up, so differences in brain development will be much easier to detect at that point. On average, though, an evaluation is recommended before reaching age 6. Anything after turning 6 is technically considered a late diagnosis. And we know earlier is better because it opens doors to helpful resources and interventions much sooner. If you are an adult and you're wondering if it's too late for it to be worth it to you to get a diagnosis, I was in the same boat. I thought if I'd gone through life this far and hadn't had any problems, then it probably wasn't going to make much of a difference. But getting a diagnosis changed my life in ways that I couldn't have imagined. Diagnosis as an adult has a way of forcing you to re-examine your entire life in great detail. And I realized I really hadn't done as well as I had thought. I began to remember times when I felt like I lost control, or times when I felt like I'd gone mad, times I'd completely dissociated, and so on. Basically, I was trying to live as a neurotypical person in a neurotypical world, but the reality was I was not equipped to do so. It was like I was a zebra in a world of horses, wondering why myself I was such a bad horse. And I was dangerously close to unaliving myself just before my diagnosis. I understand we are all different and we all have different circumstances. So you'll have to decide if a diagnosis is beneficial for you or not. For me, though, the benefits greatly outweighed the risks. And I hope that this video will help you to decide what's best for you. Number 2, any reason why I should not get an autism evaluation? While an evaluation is no guarantee of an autism diagnosis, mental health is usually improved after being diagnosed. A lot of this has to do with finally understanding what makes us different. However, there are reasons why a person may not want to be diagnosed. First, labels. There's a lot of stigma about autism, and it can lead some people to avoid seeking an evaluation altogether. If fear of labels stops you from seeking an autism diagnosis for your child, think of the long-term impacts on them. Your ego doesn't matter here. Ignore others' gossip for your child's sake. Seeking a diagnosis is not about admitting your child is less than. It's about accepting their reality and setting them up for success. It empowers them with the knowledge and tools for a better life. Don't deny them those opportunities. Despite wanting to protect them, they will face poor treatment from those who don't understand differences, and preventing them from learning to navigate the world is a disservice. Don't let others' ignorance limit your child's opportunities. As a late diagnosed autistic adult, I know the harm of not understanding oneself. Early diagnosis and interventions improve quality of life and help them advocate for themselves. So toughen up. If fear of being labeled stops you from seeking an autism diagnosis for yourself, that's your choice. But remember, being undiagnosed doesn't mean you aren't autistic. The abuse you might experience isn't a guaranteed result of being labeled. For the most part, seeking a diagnosis validates and helps you understand yourself. The problem lies with abusers who succeed if you avoid learning the truth about yourself. So take that empowering step. Another reason to not get diagnosed is maybe if you plan on emigrating to another country. For those seeking to come to the United States, autistic immigrants were deported during the first Trump administration. And while it's still too early to tell for sure, there's no reason to think that won't be the case during his second. Interestingly, though, there is a way to apply for a disability waiver if you have a disability that prevents you from learning or remembering the information typically required to pass the citizenship test. Canada has denied citizenship in cases where the individual was considered a burden to the Canadian medical system. New Zealand prohibits application for permanent residency if significant support is required. Australia forbids immigration of people who would be exceptionally costly for the nation's healthcare or social services, and this includes autistic people. Then there's countries like Japan who have a reputation for being less accepting of the neurodivergent. All these things need to be taken into consideration. Another reason not to get diagnosed is affordability. And while there are some free options available online, a formal diagnosis from a certified evaluator can cost a lot of money. And some people may not be able to afford to pay for the evaluation because of that. Later on in this video, we will discuss costs associated with the evaluation, including time, travel, and fees for the service. Another issue is availability. Though the number of trained evaluators is constantly increasing, there's simply not enough to meet the demand for evaluations. And so it's a real possibility that there may not be a qualified evaluator in your area, or that you may have to go on a long waiting list. So let's talk about who is able to diagnose autism. Number 3, who can diagnose autism? Believe it or not, you can diagnose yourself. Yes, my friend, back in the 90s, the US government recognized that there was a lack of people qualified to identify and diagnose autism. So they invested in autism research and education, which is why we saw a huge increase in autism diagnoses in the 90s. Since there's still a shortage of evaluators today and many reliable tests are available online, self-diagnosis is widely accepted in the autistic community. Many of you watching this video may be where I was just a few years ago when I started my autism journey. Maybe someone hinted that you reminded them of an autistic character on TV, or maybe your counselor suggested you might be autistic, but you don't yet understand what it means to be autistic. So you're simply looking into it. It's perfectly okay to use one of the many free online autism quizzes to give you an idea of whether or not you could be autistic. You can either take the ASRS or RADS 14, which are available for a self-assessment, or you can simply search free autism quiz in your internet browser, and you'll get links to tons of free online quizzes. And they'll take you anywhere between 10 and 20 minutes to complete. And although these tests may not be conclusive, they can help you decide whether you want to continue your investigation. Another nice thing about these online quizzes is you can take them multiple times. So if a question didn't make sense the first time, feel free to try again. And this is how many of us started our journeys, including me. It's what helped me decide to find out more. If you are still leery about self-diagnosis, there are some online tools like CARS2-QPC that are specifically designed to enable parents and caregivers or spouses to diagnose autistic individuals. So that's another option as well. If you still want a professional evaluation and you have the means to pay for it, you will need to connect with a doctor who is trained to administer the autism evaluation. Now, only doctors with one of the following specialties can legally perform the evaluation. However, simply having one of these specialties does not mean they are qualified to diagnose autism. However, every provider who is qualified must have one of these specialties. In general, they have to be a psychiatrist, or a psychologist, or a neuropsychologist. And sometimes, some states will have exceptions that allow for evaluations to be performed on children by these specialties, which are developmental pediatrician, a child neurologist, speech or language pathologist, or a social worker. It's a good idea to check with your state's Department of Vocational Rehabilitation for verification of who is qualified in your state. Number 4, how do I find a qualified evaluator? The easiest answer is to ask your primary care provider. They should be able to connect you with someone to assist in finding an autistic evaluator. Many insurance websites are also equipped with free provider search tools. These can be useful in locating an evaluator near you, and you can also call the insurance company to see who they might recommend. You could ask a psychiatrist, psychologist, or neuropsychologist for a reference. Even if they are not formally qualified themselves, they usually have contacts who are. You could contact the Autism Society's National Information and Referral Hotline at this number below. And As You Are offers free virtual autism evaluations for children, so you can check out their website at asyouare.com. I will also include a link in the description of this video. Number 5, is it covered by my insurance? If you are doing an online self-evaluation, you typically aren't going to pay anything. So that makes this question kind of moot. Now, some plans do cover autism evaluations, but not all. You need to check with your insurance company to be sure that they do, and that they don't have any sort of restrictions. For instance, some may cover the evaluation, but only for children, or only if you have purchased a plan with behavioral health benefits, or only when an exception has been made, formally requested by your provider. First, ask if they cover it, then ask if there are any limitations, restrictions, or requirements that you need to meet ahead of time. Make sure the evaluator is in network. Even if the services are covered, the provider may not be covered, leaving you on the hook for the full cost. You need the evaluator and their location to both be in network, and the evaluation needs to be covered by your plan, as previously explained. All of these must be true at the same time. Copays and deductibles may still apply, but if you've met your deductible for the plan year, you may only need to pay the basic copay. If you haven't yet met your deductible, you may be responsible for paying a percentage of the cost in addition to your copay. 6. How much will it cost? Autism evaluations can cost anywhere from $800 to $5,000 depending on the clinic or the provider. Depending on what your plan covers, how close you are to meeting your deductible, whether a copay applies or not, and whether the evaluator is in your network, will all factor in. If you do not have insurance, or if the evaluation is not covered by your insurance, expect to pay the entire amount out of your own pocket. Some evaluators may need payment up front, or at least confirmation as to whether you will be paying or applying insurance before they perform the evaluation. If you have to travel a far distance to meet with a qualified evaluator, factor in the cost for your travel and if there are any needs to rent a room in a hotel or something like that. Consider asking the evaluator if there are parts of the evaluation that can be done remotely so you can avoid any unnecessary travel expenses. If the evaluator is far enough away to be out of the service area for your insurance company, this means you may be on the hook for additional charges. It's okay to check with your insurance company before the evaluation to arm yourself with the knowledge of all costs associated with the evaluation from an insurance standpoint. Number 7, how long will it take? Online evaluations usually only take between 10 and 20 minutes, depending on the number of questions and their complexity. However, none of them are really that complex, and results are provided instantly at the end of each quiz. Depending on the availability of an evaluator, you may need to wait several months to even a year or more in extreme cases, but many offer the option to add your name to their waiting list, which secures your place in line compared to other people waiting for their evaluations. They can usually tell you how long the wait will be and may even call you before then if something opens up. And it's okay to add your name to multiple waiting lists to increase your chances of being contacted when an available time slot opens up. It costs nothing to get on these lists, and you can always tell them you don't need it any longer if they call you after you've been evaluated. The duration of the evaluation depends on the evaluation methods, which may range from 2 hours to 8 hours. It may take even less time for children than it takes for adults. And this is usually because adults have learned to mask their autistic traits without knowing, which makes it more difficult for the evaluator to identify them. Online results are available immediately, but in-person results are usually available the next day or the next week. If additional tests are needed to reach a conclusion, the evaluation may go beyond 8 hours, and results may take up to a couple of weeks. Different testing methods may take longer than others. Some evaluators will offer you a choice of options at the time of scheduling. Number 8, what are the best or most common tests for autism? There are many evaluation tools and tests out there, and I've broken them down into a few categories, and then further broken those down by the ages that they're intended for. I will quickly run through these, but this full list is available in the description below. Okay, the first category for autism evaluations is specific to online evaluation tools. In this category, age and ability will be factors impacting whether these tests can be self-administered, because if the child can't read yet, they probably aren't going to be able to self-administer the test. Make sense? Online evaluation tools include the CARS 2 QPC and the Vineland 3, which are applicable for autistics of any age. Then for infants up to 12 months of age, we recommend the SACS-R. For 16 to 30 months, it's the QChat, and 16 to 48 months is the MChat-RF. For children up to 60 months is the SACS-PR, children under 3, the STAT, ages 2 to 3 years old, the ASIEP-3, ages 3 to 22, we have the GARS-3, and ages 4 to 11, we have CAST, C-A-S-T. For ages 2 and older, we have ASRS, 3 and older, SRS, 4 and older, SCQ, And for 16 and older, we have the AQ, which has a shortened version called the AQ10, or the ASPE quiz. For adults, we recommend the ASBQ, CATQ, RADS-R, which has a shortened version known as RADS-14, the RBQ-2A, through-days DSM-5 Autism Self-Assessment, or VIA. Now, several of these standard online evaluations are available in a consolidated spreadsheet known as the Lloyd-Preece Psychometric Autoscorer tool. I'll leave a link to that in the description below. If you are a parent or caregiver that is going to be performing the evaluation, these next tools are not available online, but they can be administered by a parent or a caregiver if you obtain them through your doctor. For ages 14 months to 15 months is the ESAT. 18 months to 24 months, the PDD-ST2. Ages 18 months to 48 months, the DBC-ES for early screening. For ages 3 to 11, the HIVA, H-I-V-A. 3 to 14 years old are the ABC. 3 to 22, the GADS-2. 4 to 18 is DBC-ASA. 5 to 18, ASDS. 6 to 22, the KADI. For professional diagnoses, you're not going to obtain those online. They have to be administered by a trained professional, but they'll particularly use these tests. The ADOS-2 can be administered for people of any age. In fact, it's considered the gold standard. It uses semi-structured observation techniques to diagnose autism, and this requires extensive training and certification in order to administer this test. It tends to have most consistent results across all ages, developmental levels, and language skill levels. This test is also the most widely supported by research. For ages 16 months to 10 years, the As You Are virtual clinic can be used. It's more of a telehealth style evaluation. Ages 2 to adult, we have the ADI-R or the CARS-2 ST, which is the standard edition. Ages 6 to 17, we have the 3DI, which covers 3 different dimensions. And ages 6 and older, we have the CARS-2 HF, which is for high-functioning autistics, typically those with a IQ of 80 or higher. Number 9. What should I expect the experience to be like? Online evaluations are fast and easy questionnaires. These should be completed relatively fast and easy. Most of them take under 30 minutes to complete, and results are immediate. For evaluations administered by family or caregivers, it's recommended that a professional be present to add context and to ensure that the evaluation runs smoothly, but it's not required. Just know the person performing the evaluation may not be trained, so your results may vary. For professional evaluations, keep your expectations low. I was hoping the evaluator would be able to identify my sensitivities and help me understand how to stim, but that was not the case. She also said some things that came across as ableist, but I honestly don't know if she was either bad at her job or if that was part of the test. In any case, it was not what I expected, so I encourage you to just keep an open mind. Evaluators are typically looking for these 5 most common behaviors associated with autism: asking for information, complex mannerisms, descriptive gestures, direct or indirect vocalization, and eye contact. But we know that these are not really defining factors of autism. They're just hints that you may be autistic. So they may also ask you questions about past experiences that may inform them about your sensitivities or social deficits or cognitive issues or any other kind of autistic trait. They will need to run a series of tests such as counting backwards in uncommon intervals. Maybe you'll be required to remember some words or stories that you were told and then asked to recall them later. Or provide examples of words starting with a particular letter but are not proper nouns. Or identify facial expressions by the evaluator's face or from looking at photos. Maybe you'll be asked to explain vocal tone from recordings, or explain certain cliches or sayings. You may be asked to answer questions about experiences from your own life, or engage in small talk. The evaluator will interview your spouse, parents, and possibly other family members. And be sure that these people are okay with you giving the evaluator their information and that they're okay talking to the evaluator about you or your child. An evaluator may consult with other providers that you or your child have seen, such as a psychologist or a psychiatrist. And the evaluator will provide a written summary of their findings, along with some suggestions for accommodations. It is okay to ask questions and to even question the findings. I asked my evaluator to change some facts she listed that were inaccurate about my family history. I also asked her to remove a statement that I thought would limit my ability to obtain assistance. All of that is okay. Number 10, how should I prepare? Consider every point discussed in this video, and then have a list of traits you've already identified in yourself. For example, what stims you might have, sensitivities, struggles with abilities, history of seizures. And be well rested when you take the evaluation. And try not to mask. And I know, it's easier said than done. Just be patient with yourself and try to be as honest as possible. So those are 10 points to consider before you seek an autism diagnosis for yourself or a loved one. I hope you found this video helpful, and if so, please leave a like and consider subscribing for more content. Also, consider sharing this video to help educate others who may be thinking about getting diagnosed for autism themselves. If you have any questions or suggestions about anything that I may have missed, please leave a comment below. And until next time, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please comment, like, and subscribe to see more content like this. Or click on the video here to continue watching.